Oh, hey, I see you all made it. It's launch day, and we're finally here. Well, I'm excited because we're going to get to see all the new products and features ControlUp launched yesterday. Now, I know there was a lot of reading yesterday. We're going to summarize it in an hour. I encourage question and answer, and stay tuned until the end to find out how you get your cool swag. Well, I'm going to pass it over to Joel, and in 10 seconds, we'll get started.
Welcome everybody to this ControlUp webinar about digital employee experience management. We're very excited to have you all on today, and we have some great content prepared for you. And in just a short bit, you will hear from Yoni, our co-founder and COO, and then followed by Trenton and Justin, who have a great set of demos prepared for you to show you all our new technologies. But before we are going to tell you about how ControlUp can address some of the challenges that come with work from anywhere, we asked around to some industry experts to see how they are perceiving kind of what happened over the last year and how it has affected the way they look at monitoring and managing the digital experience. So let's have a quick look at that.
No way! That's never gonna happen.
Oh, I would have laughed.
I probably would have laughed first and then said, really?
But now that we've been going with this for quite some time now, I think a lot of your users are becoming more accustomed to working from home and working from anywhere.
I have to tell you, for some of my customers, this has been a brand new experience.
Back in the day, if I can use that term, it was very much IT mandated what the users got, whereas now it seems to have flipped around. So the IT departments really have managed to crack it so that, but flexibility is given to the user as well. So it's a good experience for both. So kind of a win-win.
I've always thought that employee satisfaction or experience was my measurement, how successful my virtual desktop implementations were.
I think the employees are expecting a lot more today from IT than they ever have been. Work from home shift has resulted in a lot of different use cases. And I think because of that, the employee satisfaction really needs to be addressed a lot more.
I mean, the new issues are primarily created by the situations that an IT department cannot control.
IT also had to do a lot of shifting. They had a lot of infrastructure, a lot of workflows that they had to adjust for. They had to deal with a lot of users now working from home.
And of course, having enough bandwidth. Can you ever get enough bandwidth?
And this is what I think makes these factors so important for IT departments. So they need to have some scoring mechanism, some visibility into that kind of user experience.
When I think of ControlUp, I think of no-brainer.
What I think about ControlUp is that I love how you focus on monitoring, on making sure that I get all the data that I need.
ControlUp, for me, is here to help IT departments to get this clear view on what's going on in their digital workplace infrastructure.
Yoni, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hey everyone. Hey Joel, thanks a lot. Thanks Pete, and welcome on board, by the way. Really exciting times. Hey everyone, this is Yoni here. As mentioned, I'm the COO and one of the co-founders. I'm really excited to be here today. Today is kind of like the accumulation of the work we've been doing in the past year. And I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. We're going to show you what we came up with after the Avasy acquisition. We're going to show you some groundbreaking technology for the work from home era. So stay tuned, it's going to be pretty awesome. Let's start. So just so we're on the same page, let's quickly cover the ControlUp mission statement. So we are here to help our customers manage the full end-to-end digital experience. As you may know, a modern enterprise, usually provides multiple apps, multiple devices, and these days even multiple connectivity options for their employees to remain productive. Wherever they are, they can be at home, at the coffee shop, the beach, the office, whatever. The ControlUp platform traditionally covered VDI, whether it's on-premises VDI or the newer cloud-based offering. With ScoutBiz, we have an awesome support for measuring the availability and performance of SaaS application and local web applications. For a long time, we have been covering the on-premises infrastructure powering VDI, whether it's VMware vSphere or all the other major hypervisors. And with the new technology we're about to announce today, we are now also covering physical endpoints. And this includes the most popular endpoints you guys are familiar with, whether it's Windows laptops, MacBooks, and some of the most popular thin clients out there. So, obviously, in addition to that, we are enabling our customers to optimize the work from anywhere, and we can do that for any stage of the user journey and from any location. And if we quickly look on what we have here, so we have ScoutBiz. ScoutBiz is the power behind our synthetic monitoring solution. This enables us to proactively monitor any VDI resource, any web-based or network resource. The great news about ScoutBiz is that we're not relying on the real user monitoring. So obviously we have that. We'll cover that in a sec. But with ScoutBiz, we have our own synthetic, small synthetic robots running 24/7, way before users wake up, and you can really be proactive about making sure your environment is up and running. ControlUp Real-Time DX, that's probably our flagship product. You guys should be familiar with that by now, I would hope. This is where you can, see all the actionable dashboards and data points we have in real time. This is probably the perfect place to troubleshoot and remediate any issues occurring in your end-user computing environment, whether you guys are doing it on demand or in automated fashion. And finally, ControlUp Insights. This is where we provide all the historical reporting and analytics to help you guys manage your end-user computing estates. Now, I'm assuming hopefully some or maybe even all of you have been with us in the previous March webinar when we officially GA'd Solve. So I think the awesome news for all of our customers is that Solve is indeed becoming our single place to consume all the existing and new ControlUp services. So Solve already fully supports ControlUp Real-Time DX. It already includes ScoutBiz, as some of you may have seen. And I think you will be very happy to learn that the two new major features we're announcing today are already fully integrated into Solve. So indeed, it's a single pane of glass. It's a modern SaaS web-based UI, and I urge you to try it if you haven't done so yet. So hopefully you guys have realized by now that myself, I'm a true believer in simplicity, and it's actually a core value for us at ControlUp. Even though the platform has been growing super fast, we are working very hard to make sure that simplicity remains as is. And it's obviously true for purchasing as well. So earlier this year, we launched our Ultimate edition, which is by far the simplest way to consume ControlUp. It basically includes everything. And you will see in the last slide, of my part at least, that we have made a lot of effort into making sure that even with the new features, Ultimate remains a simple way to consume all the good stuff coming from us. Trying is also very easy. And again, that's not something we're going to change. Trying ControlUp is a breeze, right? Simply go to our website, download ControlUp, launch it on your network, create an organization, create an account, and add your resources. It's easy as that. And I can tell you guys that even in the last couple of years, we still hear large enterprise customers coming to us and telling us that in something like 30 minutes they were able to start seeing value from ControlUp. And I urge you to dare me and try that. It's that easy. So, how can we make this better? Good question. Let's try to answer it. So today we're launching two super awesome features or modules. The first one is ControlUp Remote DX. So Remote DX is mainly intended for VDI use cases. It's a new way to get specific, mainly network-related metrics from the physical endpoints your end users are using to connect to the VDI environment. You will see the demos, you will get all the details, but this is an awesome tool that really gets you the full visibility you need to understand how the end user is performing and whether issues are originating at the data center or something related to the customer-owned environment. The second announcement is ControlUp Edge, EdgeDX. So, as some of you may have heard, late last year, we purchased an awesome technology and a company called Avasy. And we were very happy to add John Rolls and John Wallace to the ControlUp team, and they've been doing a phenomenal work integrating Avasy into the ControlUp platform. And this results in ControlUp EdgeDX. So today we are launching EdgeDX. It's fully integrated into Solve, and EdgeDX is all about bringing the full power of ControlUp into the physical endpoint state, right? So think about Windows laptops, MacBooks, thin clients. Together with EdgeDX, you guys can enjoy the full breadth of the ControlUp features, whether it's real-time monitoring, script actions, analytics, everything you expect from ControlUp is now available for physical endpoints as well. We do have other features. We'll see, how Justin and Trent will do. Hopefully, they can cover some of these. But even if we won't get them today, feel free to browse our website and see all the cool stuff we have as part of the new release. So let's speak quickly about the two new modules, and then we'll go over to the actual demos. So both EdgeDX and RemoteDX are all about monitoring the last mile. And obviously, it's not. I don't think it's a big secret that the pandemic has triggered a huge wave of work from home, work from anywhere scenario. Right? This is happening. I'm assuming that all of us here are actually experienced it ourselves in the last probably 2 years. And this change has created a new blind spot, I would say, for many of the IT admins out there. So, traditional solutions usually focus on having their agents and sensor running at the customer data center, right? So that's great for covering the underlying infrastructure. It's great for seeing how the VDAs, like the virtual desktop endpoints, are behaving. Sometimes you can get some kind of visibility using metrics like protocol latency to understand a bit about how the user is connecting into the VDA endpoint, but that's not enough, especially when a major part of the workforce is working remotely these days. And let's see how we fix that. So last mile experience monitoring. This is where we enable our customers to get increased visibility and control about the actual endpoint, the actual place where the user is either running his VDI session or running his, traditional apps, or obviously the newer SaaS applications. And we have two modules to address this. So the first one is RemoteDX. So as said, RemoteDX is geared towards VDI use cases. So what we did here essentially, we created a new tiny component called RemoteDX agent, which needs to be deployed on the physical endpoints running the Citrix or Horizon client. It's a very small install. It's essentially a DLL running some basic API calls, and it's using a custom virtual channel to send the physical endpoint metrics back to the ControlUp agent running on the Citrix or Horizon VDI endpoints. So it's a very simple component. It's only running when the VDI session is live. So there are no privacy issues. It should be very compatible with BYOD scenarios. And once configured, you guys are getting an awesome visibility into the networking aspects of the physical endpoints. So things like the Wi-Fi signal strength, what's the ISP provided internet latency, and many other things you will see soon in the demo, which really makes it a breeze to troubleshoot and analyze work from home scenarios. On with EdgeDX. EdgeDX, as mentioned, brings the full power of ControlUp into the physical endpoints domain. So once you guys deploy EdgeDX on your Windows laptops, MacBooks, thin clients, you get the full-blown feature set, whether it's real-time performance monitoring, the ability to run script actions, Windows and Mac and Linux, the ability to customize alerts based on anything we can track. All of that is available for EdgeDX. So, anyone who is deploying applications that are meant to be executed directly on physical endpoints, whether it's local apps, whether it's SaaS applications or web applications, EdgeDX would be the solution for you guys. So to bring this all together, we have the traditional real-time DX, which you guys all know. There we are covering the full VDI stack, whether it's running in the cloud or on premises. And with the 2 new additions, we now have full visibility into the last mile. And depending on the use case, we need to choose the best solution. And as promised, we kept things simple. So the same ControlUp Ultimate package we announced earlier this year will cover all the new modules. So I urge you to simply go ahead and expand to Ultimate, or obviously if you're a prospect, make sure that this is the edition you guys are purchasing. So Trent, take it away, man. Good luck.
Thanks, Yoni. All right. Okay, so I'm Trent. I work for Tech Marketing and ControlUp, and I just want to pitch a scenario that I think a lot of us are probably going through right now, where a year ago, a big transition happened where people were advised to work from home or forced to work from home. And so organizations had to pivot. They had to get laptops, they had to get devices, they had to try to allow people to connect into their data centers remotely. And part of that challenge is that you may not have had enough devices for everyone, but you're still providing access through gateways like Citrix and VMware and so on and so forth. So what I have here is I've got a scenario of one of those typical users. So they're accessing a Citrix or VMware Horizon environment. They're mostly working from home, predominantly maybe a coffee shop if that's available in your area. But the challenge is that with the shortages in the industry today, with even just computer parts, this person is just using their own laptop, maybe a MacBook or maybe a Chromebook or a Linux device that they have as well. And so they're connecting into your environment with their home device. And so part of that challenge when we talk about users having problems is that this user could be reporting, hey, I'm getting slowness when I'm typing, or if I'm clicking, I'm not getting a response right away, or maybe things are just poor overall. And they don't really have a good way of troubleshooting that. You can look at your data center like we can traditionally do with ControlUp, and you can see all the statistics look good. So then what do you do, right? You can start blaming the user's home network or something like that, but you're really just guessing. So what we're looking to do with these technologies is actually bring that visibility to you, the administrator. So that way you actually have some knowledge and capability and power to help your remote users in their home environment. And so what we're looking at here is we're looking at our ControlUp Solve product, and you can see what I'm showing you is the new Remote DX columns that we're offering in ControlUp. So how Remote DX works, it's, as Yoni had mentioned, it's a simple DLL that gets added to your agent of choice, whether that is the Citrix Workspace app or the VMware Horizon client, And that DLL, what it does is it opens a virtual driver, virtual channel driver, and the ControlUp software will talk through that virtual channel driver, querying that virtual channel DLL to ask it for some information about the user's environment. And so what we're looking at here is all of the information that we're pulling in our ControlUp organization today for everyone connected to this particular environment. And so what you can see is, I'm going to start with the client device score. We've got this nice client device score column here that actually tells you an overall aggregate as to how that session is performing. So we can see we've got one user here whose client device score is quite bad, so it's red. We've got a couple others who are, an average. So they're, potentially have some health issues, something that might need to be investigated. And then we've got a lot of other users that are good. We can talk about client OS version and client OS name. So you can see some pretty exciting names on here. We're supporting Mac OS, we're supporting Windows, and we're supporting iGel Linux to start. And you can see we're supporting various versions of Mac OS, Windows, and the IGL OS platform as well with this first go. And so one of the really cool things that we have here is this client device score. We've actually got this little house icon, and if I click on it, it brings up a visualizer that tells you how that session is performing. So we can see this particular device is called macOS 2. It's got a 75% Wi-Fi signal strength. Its ping time to its local gateway is 208 milliseconds. So generally, if you're pinging the local gateway and you're having a ping time such as this, you're probably having a pretty poor experience throughout the entire internet that you have access to. So 208 milliseconds is a pretty bad place to start, but moving on, we can see that ping time to Google's, which is another test that we have, is 238 milliseconds. So we're pinging the Google DNS servers, which are geographically dispersed across the world. So that actually gives us a pretty good idea of what your local internet connectivity is. And then lastly, we're doing the total session latency. So we're connecting in from your endpoint to your data center server, and we're sending that ping time back and forth. So this is a very similar metric to what Citrix has with like ICA network latency and with what VMware has with their RTT protocol latency metric. And so this is just essentially ControlUp's implementation of it. And so there's other advantages with it that we could discuss over maybe the vendor-specific implementations. I think we're pinging a little faster and so on and so forth, so we get more of that real-time metric feel that you're used to. Down below, you can see that we've got the metadata that's associated with this particular session. So we can see the nickname, the speed of that connection, and so on and so forth. So let's move into the columns here, and I just want to talk about these new remote DX columns. So obviously we can see things like the client OS version. So you can actually track and see, you know, is a user connecting into your network, are they using a fully patched and supported operating system? So we pull that information from these devices, and then we pull it into ControlUp. And this actually allows us to do some automation opportunities where we'll be coming out with an automation that will actually check to make sure that your OS is a supported version, that it's getting security patches. And if it's not, you'll be able to enable actions like displaying a message telling the user that they need to upgrade their operating system, or you could even enable further actions like forcibly logging them off. We also have the client OS name. So as you can see, we can actually sort by this. We wanted to look at specific operating systems just to see who's connecting in with what. So pretty cool. And then as well, we've got the client NIC type. So we can look at whether it's a wireless connection. We can see if it's a wired connection. We're pulling the client nickname. So you get those devices, that identifier for those particular wireless ones. So if you with this information, you'll be able to spot like trends, right? So are these Intel wireless AC connections better than the Intel Wi-Fi 6 connections? Potentially, you'll be able to see that through the rest of the metrics that we're pulling in ControlUp. So now we're getting into the real-time metrics as opposed to the metadata, and this is where I think a lot of people are excited. So we're pulling things like the Wi-Fi signal strength, and this is obviously really important because as users are roaming around their home or wherever they might be, the Wi-Fi signal strength is going to fluctuate, right? And I did a test just in my home where I just started walking around it, and I could see my Wi-Fi signal strength adjust itself in real time. I could see it drop, I could see it go up. So I actually know where the strong spots are in my house to ensure that I've got good connectivity and I'm having a good experience. As well, we're tracking the client NIC speed. So another anecdote here is that as I was walking around my house, I could actually see my Wi-Fi signal strength. It might dip just a little bit, but I could see the client NIC speed actually drop pretty significantly. So this gives us another piece of information that what the wireless networks do in your home is that they will adjust the available bandwidth you have in order to maintain signal integrity. And so that's pretty interesting that you can actually correlate those two now. So even if you have like an 80% Wi-Fi signal strength, like this particular person, if you're running at 108 megabits, even though you're on supposedly an AC network or a really fast network, you might know that they might still be some distance from their access point, or maybe they have some other type of interference as well. We're also tracking the client packet losses reported by the network adapter. And then these three columns are super, super interesting. And this is going to help you troubleshoot a lot for these particular users. So LAN latency, internet latency, total session latency. With this information, we can make some educated guesses as to what's going on in your user's network. So for example, here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort by Wi-Fi SSID. And I'm bringing up these two particular users here that are on this T-Home 2 network. we can actually see that from the Wi-Fi BSSID, they're actually connected to the exact same access point, right? Because the physical hardware is the physical hardware address is the same. So they have to be connecting to the same access point, same public IP address, same router, and yet we have one having significantly worse health issues than this other one. So what I can suss out from this information, just by looking at it at a glance, is that this is probably a sick endpoint. You know, maybe it's overloaded, maybe it's mining Bitcoin or something like that, and so it's consuming a lot of CPU that's taking away resources from the network stack to be able to send those packets out or something like that. Not entirely sure, but because they're connected to the same devices, I can say that this issue must exist here because this device looks very healthy connected to the exact same access point. So we think that's pretty cool. One of the strengths and features that we have with EdgeDX is that you can actually get more information about this, but with RemoteDX, we're offering just this kind of read-only panel for right now. And then again, you can see the internet latency. So of course, if the floor is 204 milliseconds, the internet latency is going to be significantly higher and the total session latency is going to be significantly higher. So I can actually direct this user to do some kind of change in their environment, whether it's like upgrading the operating system or whatever, rebooting the machine if I think it's sick, which it definitely appears to be. So moving on, we can see we have these other columns as well. So local router IP. So this is the local router IP that the ping packets are going to. So you're able to actually identify if it's correct or not. We can look at the client IP address. So this is the external IP address for that particular internet connection. And as well, we can actually see client inactive time. So why this is important is over the last year or so, we've had a lot of requests from customers on doing productivity reports. Well, to be perfectly frank, productivity reports is a very hard thing to do because we're not measuring productivity with the data that we have. What we are measuring is keyboard and mouse activity. And when you're talking about Citrix sessions or Horizon sessions or Microsoft sessions, that activity is only on that session itself. So if you have a published desktop, but you've got like 2 monitors and you're just running it on one, and say you're watching a YouTube video on your local machine in order to do some kind of training or something, you are actually not going to know whether or not they're being productive because that Citrix session or that Horizon session is going to be telling you that they're inactive. So this is actually getting the inactivity time on that local device. And so this is going to be able to help us determine whether or not users are actually at their computers or not, or how long they've actually been doing some kind of activity. So this is really exciting too. We're getting the Wi-Fi authentication information as well. And this is really cool because you can do things like, we can see we've got this one user here who is actually connected to an open network at, it looks like the Hilton Honors Embassy. So this person might be traveling, they might be at a hotel, and they're connected to an open network. Well, this network is not encrypted, right? They're just connected into a completely unencrypted Wi-Fi network where another person could be snooping on their traffic. Potentially what we could do here is we could set up an automation that looks at the Wi-Fi authentication column. When it's populated, if it has open in the title, then we can message this user and say, hey, we are not allowing you to be on this particular type of network connection. You must be on a secure network connection. And again, take further action, whether that's continuing to message or actually forcibly log them off or something like that. And then we have some other metadata information here with the Wi-Fi channel and the Wi-Fi radio type. So that's all really cool stuff. And we're really excited to show you this, and we're really hoping that you guys, when you implement this in your environment, that you'll be super excited by it too. So
before you move on, Trenton, so there were quite a few questions about hey, do I need an agent? Where does the agent live? Do I need something on the client side? Maybe you can touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, you bet. Sure. So what we have is we're going to be offering essentially what you see here, these 2 EXE packages. You can see the size of them. They're tiny. So the majority of this is actually just the installer itself. The DLLs themselves are like 30 or 50 kilobytes. They're very, very tiny. It's 1 DLL for Citrix. It's 1 DLL for VMware. And what we do is we just copy, for the Citrix one, we just copy it essentially into the ICA client folder and enable it in the modules.ini. So that's what we do to enable this virtual driver. There's no agent to install. This is purely a virtual driver that only connects and only sends information when you have a ControlUp session running. So if you've connected to a server or a desktop that's being monitored by ControlUp. So these aren't agent-based, they're virtual channel-based. They only exist while the session is open, and that data only exists if ControlUp is monitoring it and you have the remote DX feature in your ControlUp licensing. So yeah, there's no agent. That's why we believe that this is very good for the BYOD people, because I know as myself, I would not be overly comfortable with this level of information, with this level of information or more that you would get from a 24/7 monitoring agent on my personal device. But for just existing sessions that are connecting in, I don't see a problem with this, and I hope you and your users will agree. So one of the things I just wanted to show really quickly too is how we can leverage this for automation. So because this is ControlUp, every one of these columns is able to be triggered by the values that you see here. And so what we can do for this is we can actually go into the triggers here, and I actually have an existing trigger created here, and we will be having some community triggers come out with this. So what I can do is I can message the user when low Wi-Fi signal strength is detected. And so you create an ad trigger, but here I'll just create a normal one. All of these metrics are in session. So you'd want to have a session record. And then here you'd want to go to the filter editor, and here's where you can actually add those new columns. So for Wi-Fi, we can say like, is Wi-Fi authentication, is it open? Because if it's open, then we want to message them. Do we want the Wi-Fi signal strength to only be messaged when it's less than 60% and greater than 1%, or so on and so forth. So once we have that, we define our scope, and then we run our actions. So we've already got some pre-built script actions that will be released shortly that will do messaging for your users about this. And the reason why I say messaging is because that's all we can do with Remote DX with this particular feature is, besides pulling the stats, communicating back to the users can only be done through the session, because we can actually bring up messages and stuff on their Citrix or Horizon session, so we can send them notifications and stuff like that. For more power and more advanced features, like actually taking some remediation action, that's something that can be done within the new feature, Edge DX. And for that, I'll actually pass that off to Justin, and he can take you through a tour of Edge DX.
Sure, thanks so much. So what we're going to be talking about is this kind of use case where we have a user who is leveraging installed applications more frequently than published applications via Citrix or published VDI sessions. We will support users who are working fairly remotely, sometimes from other locations, and those that are using a corporate provided device. These would be machines that are generally corporate assets, or if they're an end user asset, we would have at least permission to install a management MSI package onto that endpoint device. But this is a way to optimize, analyze, and observe the sessions from work from home scenarios. And the product is now branded Edge DX. We'll get into the demonstration now and show you this technology. So Edge DX is launched via the Solve console. And we have a little icon here for physical endpoints. That used to be the name of the technology, as well as Abaci. Those are prior names. So Edge DX is enabled here. If you're a Solve customer and you don't have the icon, you can talk to your account team or support to get it enabled. And this is the dashboard console where we can see how many devices are managed and how many licenses we have. And we can see how many machines are online. For this kind of work from anywhere kind of scenario, we felt it important to put a geography map on the bottom so you can see where all of the devices are actually connecting in from. We're getting more location information because now we're actually putting an agent onto the endpoint device. So you'll see here we support Windows devices as well as Linux and Mac books. So this is very much a broad range of support. And to show where you would actually download the agent and a little bit about the installation, this settings configuration box up here gives you the ability to choose the downloads. This would be your Windows agent download link. You get a little device registration code, and it's a single MSI exec command to install the agent, potentially in silent mode. I've actually worked with another customer to get this technology working with Intune. So you can certainly push this as an application with any technology that can push MSI packages. So Systems Center, ECM, Avanti's Endpoint Manager, all of those would be supported methodologies to deliver out this MSI package. We also offer a Linux agent, and it's baked in to the iGel devices. And we have Mac OS X support as well. The point of this tool is to give you a device-based view and be able to monitor machines that aren't on the network. So these machines are uploading their information through a secure socket layer website, and it is aggregating all that information and making it available to our administrators and searchable via Elasticsearch. So to just show a little bit of the technology, I can drill into a machine. This would be an example of an iGel device. And you can see what ISP it is connected with, a little bit about its IP address. You can see CPU utilization, CPU queue length, memory, network, context switching, all those sorts of important metrics on the individual device. I'd like to show that this is also available for your MacBooks. So here's an example of a Mac OS X device running 10.13, probably needs to upgrade. A different ISP provider. Wi-Fi signal strength are also provided here with CPU, memory, network, disk, Wi-Fi, all the important metrics for the thin client devices as well as Mac devices. Drilling into kind of a user that maybe had a little issue and figure out how we can dive a little bit deeper and actually look at something like processes within the machine. I'll come here and search for who that user was. So this is going to be me, and I'm going to drive into my machine, and I get those same metrics: CPU queue length, network, disk. You can see my ISP provider. You can see my Wi-Fi signal. And I can actually drill into this user's metrics to find out more about this user's problem. So I had a little issue where I saw some pretty high CPU consumption. So we're going to apply a custom range of dates for this view. And then this will zoom into those ranges. And now here I see this little spike in CPU, and I can kind of drill into it and drill into it closer and closer until I can see, what is actually spiking this CPU. And if I hover my mouse over this, you'll see that I am being plagued with these two processes, PCD memory and Discord, of which 6 of those are running. So I've taken this user who had a significant CPU blip, and I've been able to dive into what processes are actually generating that load. Well, what if I want more information than that? Well, I can go in and look at all processes that are running, and I can see, okay, so how many people are actually running Discord in this environment? And it turns out it's pretty much just me. Or I could look into that PCD application and look at that .p5x app and see who launched it, when it started, when it ended. I can look in this year. I can take this information and I can export it so that I can manipulate it in all types of ways. So literally every process that's running on all these endpoint machines is being tracked. And what I've just shown you is a user a month ago complained about slowness on their machine, not connected on the VPN, not connected to any sort of Citrix or VMware application, but yet I'm still able to drill in and find the exact process that was spiking that CPU. It's really cool technology, something we've been asked for quite some time. So super excited about the release of this Edge DX technology. But I did want to show that there's more available than that. I can certainly just view all active processes that are running right now. And I can come in and I can say, okay, I'd like to terminate that Discord process. Maybe that'll free up some of the CPU. And now this machine, when it checks in next, will follow that request to kill off that Discord application. I can see what apps are installed. I can see what patches are missing. And I can even grab custom events. One example that we've added recently was looking at the boot time, and within that boot time, we'll report what the last 3 reboots were. And we can alert on that. If a user is rebooting their machine more than 3 times in a day, automatically create an alert. So when we're looking at these devices, for any of these metrics, you can just set those alert thresholds, and then you can view every time an alert was hit in your system events or define new alerts. So a couple more reports that I wanted to make sure that you guys get a chance to see. The all process report obviously gives you every single metric around every single process, but what if you want to view it in a more graphical way, like when we're trying to troubleshoot the life of a session, for example. So here's a user logging in, and we can choose to drill into this user's session analysis. And what it'll do is show me the entire session of this user and aggregate all of the process information into a graphical format. So at the top of my report, I can see all the service host executables. So these are all the services that are running underneath my user. And you'll notice if I look at one of these, you can see the entire command line. You can see the parent process and parent process ID, when it started, when it stopped, how much CPU it was using, and how much memory it was using. You can also find really interesting trends, like for various background tasks that are running, or for certain applications that seem to pop up over and over for a particular user. You can see I use the snipping tool. You can see I use Slack. You can see I use Discord. And you can see my primary browser is the Edge browser. And here's every single instance of Edge, every single window shows up inside of this device-based report. So really compelling information, gives you a very graphical view where you can find what things are waking up every hour and starting. You can find what is consuming CPU, what's consuming memory. You can see what spawns. You can see literally everything the user is doing inside of their entire user session from front to back, which I think is pretty compelling information. Sometimes our customers want to see that information expressed more in kind of the tabbed view. So that way you could take this and just export it to CSV on a particular user or on a particular process. And then one of the things we've been doing with a lot of customers for quite a bit of time is showing logon detail reports. And so being able to show what the user's logon experience was like is pretty powerful. Being able to show this user has 1.4 seconds of average logon time, longest logon of 1.5 minutes. Being able to get your users down to a much tighter logon time than otherwise. We want all customers for local machines getting logged in under 5 seconds, and on Citrix and VMware sessions getting logged in that 25 to 30 second kind of neighborhood. Now, before we close down on this particular topic, I just wanted to mention that this is extremely extensible. You can modify and configure this product to capture any data you would like. So showing you a quick little example, and my thanks to the Johns on showing us this technology and building this platform. This get CPU temperature, for example, shows how to grab information from WMI query, where we're starting where our data begins, ending at the data ends, and in the middle we have this get WMI script that is grabbing the thermal temperature of a particular machine. Now, once I've created that as a script and chosen to when I'm going to run it, it then populates the data with that CPU temperature. And now that CPU temperature, I can come in and create a custom report that links the device name with its particular temperature. Now I've already done that, and here is that report. And you can see I have a machine right here, a rig LLT work group running at almost 60 degrees centigrade. So that's a pretty hot temperature, and we have used this type of metric in the past under different scenarios to find machines that are too close to the grill inside of a restaurant. Being able to track CPU temperature may or may not be important in your world, but just keep in mind that you literally can capture any information with this scripted technology. So you can create a script for any of Windows, Mac, or Linux. If we're creating a script on Mac, then we can run that in PowerShell, Python, Bash, Swift, Shell. If we are running it on Windows, obviously we'll get slightly less. And the trigger is how frequently this is going to run when it runs. You can do something custom, or you can just launch it when the user logs in, when they lock or unlock, a short interval or a long interval, or run it once per day, and then populate the data and build your custom reports. So you literally can use this tool to run any script that you want using any of these languages. So this tool can literally administer the endpoint device in unlimited fashion. And that's why we're so excited about this technology.
Hey,
high-level dashboard, being able to drill in. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So there are some questions about the scripts, and mostly, I assume mostly from people who are familiar with our community script library. Will all those scripts be available for EdgeDX, or what is the plan there?
That's a great question. Our community team is going to be working on making sure that those are ported over, but just keep in mind that this script interface allows you to just cut and paste directly into it. So every script that we have in our script-based actions could, in theory, be added to these endpoint devices. And if it runs in PowerShell, you can gather the results of that into the data set for EdgeDX. So the answer to that is most all of those scripts will be supported, and it's a matter of cutting and pasting them. But our team is also packaging some of these scripts for out-of-the-box use to be able to do things like gather all of the event log entries on a particular Windows metric. Or,
right, and just to
the 3 reboots down.
Going to clarify, we can both use scripts to, of course, do things like troubleshooting and remediation. We can use these scripts to kind of generate all kinds of custom reports, as well as collect any metric that I could get through the respective platforms. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And you even get to define, the context under which it runs, whether it's system user or whatever. So, yep.
Excellent. All right. Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No. That was about the end of my time, Joel. I was going to turn it back to you at this point for closing comments or any additional questions.
Well, there are still some questions. I didn't want to go like all the way to kind of like, but I have some additional questions here. So this might be a question for Trenton. So Trenton, you showed some of the automation features and around scripts. Can you tell a little bit more about what you can do with scripts and if there's anything new around that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just give me 1 sec. I'll switch myself to the presenter.
No, I got you.
Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, so we have a super exciting new feature that we're adding to the ControlUp real-time DX product as well, and that is scheduled triggers. So ControlUp has always had real-time triggers for a long time, and they can do some incredibly impressive stuff by looking at the changes in the metrics that you have within your environment, right? If you see CPU go above 50% within 3 seconds, we can start executing an action on it. Well, we're offering a new way of automating as well. And so if I go to the add triggers here, you can actually see it, and we're calling it scheduled triggers. So this trigger is actually activated by a scheduled time. So let's just take a quick peek as to what that looks like. So the cool thing about ControlUp is that we execute actions against essentially any object within our purview. So you can see we've got like a folders view, we can execute actions against machines, sessions, processes, and then all the columns and associated metrics that each one of these has. So for instance, our two most popular ones are machine and session. If I choose a machine record type, I can choose to run this either one time or hourly. So if I had like a change window where I wanted to disable an application, I can choose, application. Well, I have it set for my one time. I'm going to run it, let's say tomorrow. The change window is at say 5 a.m. Boom, I have this set up, and then I can tie in a script action to automatically execute, say, a disabling of a particular application. And then subsequently, we create a new one to enable it at the end of the change window. So that way you don't have to sit there and babysit it. You could actually, live your life, so to speak. But I'm just going to switch back to machine here, and we'll just focus on the hourly ones. So what's really cool about the hourly ones is we can specify the start time and end time to be whatever we want. And then it recurs every 60 minutes all the way up to 1,440 minutes, which ends up being 24 hours. If you try to go above or below that, you get this little red bang telling you that the integer needs to be within that range. So let's stick to 60 minutes here. This is a trigger that's going to run every hour. And now here is the important part. We need to specify where we want this to run. So if we keep this filter open, our next screen will choose the scope, which means this will run against every machine within that scope. So we're going to want to filter this. Let's put forth a problem we want to solve. And the problem we want to solve is that there's no users on the machines, and we want to shut them down because we are a cloud-based environment. We want to shut them down and deallocate it. So we've got that script ready to go. It's in the ControlUp script library for actually executing such an action. It was actually written by the great Esther Barthel. But in order to actually execute it, we want our user sessions to be 0. So if there's no one on the machine, we want to shut it down. So now brings our scope. And so for this one, I want to run it against, say, my WVD environment, but it could be Citrix Cloud, it could be Horizon Cloud, it could be whatever you want. Our challenge here now then is obviously we don't want this to run hourly. We only want it to run on certain times. So we have this schedule feature within the scheduled trigger. And what this allows us to do is this allows us to define when this trigger is active. So I've got this one particular schedule here, and what you can see with the dark blue is that this is when it's set to run, and all the white is when it's set to not run. So if we wanted to run this shutdown script, say every day after 6 o'clock, so 18 equals 6 o'clock, I just select the times I want, I hit record incident, and then boom, now they're all dark blue. This is when the trigger will be active. But maybe we only want it to run for, say, 2 hours. We only want to catch these particular time slices. So I'll select my other range and choose do not record incident. If I click out, we can see it'll only be active for 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock. But maybe we don't want to do it on Saturday. And so now you can start to understand, you can actually create some really complex things here. You can create health check scripts that only run at certain times or certain hours that hit certain filters. We can do some just incredibly cool and powerful stuff. So I'm just going to hit OK here, and I'm going to choose my after hours schedule. Once this finishes applying, and let's choose that guy, after hours, no problem. We want to hit all our children folders, absolutely. And here's where we run our action. So from here, we can choose to run our action. And obviously with the ControlUp script library, we have hundreds of actions that we can do. Maybe in this particular one, I don't want to shut down, I just want to reboot the machine. So I'll just set it to be reboot. And as well, we can run other actions here as well. We can send an email letting you know that this action occurred. We can record an event in the application log for auditing purposes, and we can also dump the ControlUp views to disk if we wanted to see what actual metrics were there when this ran. Okay, so we'll choose run an action, and then here we just give it a good name. So we'll call it like scheduled trigger, reboot machines after 6 o'clock. Okay, and I'm just going to hit finish here, and boom, we'll see we have this cool new icon that'll show up. So I just need to scroll down for it. Boom, there it is. You got this cool new scheduled task icon telling you that it's now active and it's now ready to run. And that's the new schedule triggers feature. We think it'll be exceptionally powerful for people who want to execute health checks. For anyone who knows what the V-check is, that's what Warter has been keeping and maintaining. That's a VMware Horizon health check. We'll be launching with that. Available as a community schedule trigger that you'll be able to just activate, and it'll run against your environment and actually give you a health check. And we're also looking at doing something similar for Citrix. So I'm just going to disable it for right now because we don't want that.
I was just going to say that, Trent, and don't forget to disable that, because otherwise we're in for a surprise later on.
Well, for everyone who's not on a machine. But yeah, that's why it's important. It's really important to make sure you specify your scope and make sure your filters are set correctly. So you're only applying it against the resources that you intended to. So pretty cool. That's the scheduled triggers feature, and I'm super excited to share that all with you, and I hope you all enjoyed as much as I did.
Yeah, and the good thing is that everything we've seen today, so Remote DX and Edge DX, as well as the ControlUp Automate feature, which scheduled triggers is a part of, are all part of the ControlUp Ultimate Edition. So as you saw in the presentation from Yoni in the beginning, Ultimate is really the easiest way to get all the technologies. So that is your best bet. And you actually get your physical endpoint licenses, kind of in a one-to-one. So when you buy a license, it will include one for a virtual session and one for a physical endpoint, which you don't have to use together, right? You can use 1,000 licenses, to monitor 1,000 Citrix or Horizon sessions, you can still get those 1,000 HDX licenses that you can deploy towards any seat in your environment, even if these are users that are not connecting to a Citrix or Horizon session. Okay, and then I see a bunch of more questions coming in, so that is great.
Yeah, and I'd like to
Go
take
ahead.
one and just show the. So there was a question on MFA, multi-factor authentication. This is the Edge DX interface, and you can have users with their external email address. When you add a user, upon their login, they get the ability to enable MFA by clicking on the QR code. You can make it such that administrators only will have, that you have to have MFA in order to be able to administer the product to prevent any sort of malicious or rogue administrator. And then these actions all get logged as well. So we wanted to show that real quick. There was a question about whether it's available in 8. This is on the latest version, 8.2.5. You do need to be on Ultimate, not just Platinum. And the Ultimate licensing includes Solve, the Scout Bees, the Edge and Remote DX, as well as automated actions. And one more person had asked a question about creating artificial load. Our solution for creating artificial load is Scout Bees, but it's not load, it's availability testing. So Scout Bees will create a connection, log in, and then log off after 2 minutes. On our roadmap for this product, we are building session record and replay so that a user could launch an application and click to a file before logging out. But that is not supported today. That's on kind of our roadmap for this Scout Bees product. Not going to spend any other time on it since we're really focusing on Remote and Edge DX, but that was one of the questions, so I thought I'd answer it quick.
All right, thank you, Justin, for jumping in there. All right, and we are almost at the top of the hour, so we have one final message for you. So I'm going to bring back Pete here in the video, and I hope everybody enjoyed the webinar, and stay tuned for more information about getting that ControlUp baseball cap.
Well, that's a wrap, folks. I finally found out what was going on with the launch today, and I'm excited. There's a lot of great features, and I have some tasks for you to follow up on. First, you want your swag, don't you? Well, good news is you'll get a personalized link in an email post-webinar to collect your limited edition ControlUp trucker hat. Well, we covered a lot today, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I encourage you to head over to ControlUp.com to find out more. We got this nifty banner right here that informs you of all the updates we had today. I also encourage you to set up a demo. So click on the banner, and that will take you to one of our many product pages, and I encourage you to click and schedule a demo. Set up your demo today and dig deeper on all the information we talked about. Well, that's it, folks. What are you waiting for? Set up your demo today.